fellows. So we will start out with introductions from your dean, Mas Cave.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Elizabeth, I can't remember if you actually introduced yourself.
I'm Elizabeth Dykers. I am the executive assistant to Dean Mas Cave as of 3 months ago.
Very good. So welcome again, Elizabeth. Now our colleagues get to see you and know you. They've worked with, many of them have worked with, had worked with Danielle for so many years, and now it's your chance to communicate with Elizabeth. So thank you. So again, welcome everybody. Welcome to this town hall. And I am here joined by a number of the leadership team within the College of Science and Engineering. And so let me just first have my colleagues introduce themselves. So first the associate deans and then our colleagues from the
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you, Moss. Paul Strykowski, faculty in mechanical and associate dean for undergraduate programs in the college.
And I'm Joe Kunstan, faculty in computer science and engineering and associate dean for research.
I'm Kim Doctor. I'm the Assistant Dean for External Relations and the Chief Development Officer.
Hello, I'm Susan Kubitschek. I'm the Assistant Dean in Student Services.
Hi, I'm Jim McDonald. I'm the IT Director for the college.
Hi, I'm Dave Papone, the Assistant Dean for Operations and Chief Financial Officer for the college.
Joy, unmute.
I apologize. Good afternoon, Joy Wise Davis. I'm the HR Director for the college.
And I'm Rhonda Zern. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for CSE.
Well, thank you, colleagues. Associate Dean Ellen Longmire would love to be here with us today, but she's teaching. Actually, school is in case you didn't know. So classes are happening and Ellen is doing her noble duties as a faculty member, and she hopes to be with us in about half an hour. So if you have questions for Ellen, she will be joining us. Well, what can I say, colleagues? This has been an incredible summer. It's been an incredible late spring and an doubly incredible summer. I mean, the COVID situation has continued. I don't have to tell you any of these things. And the situation has been really complicated, exacerbated, and made really challenging in addition, but also providing certain opportunities for us through the murder of George Floyd and other similar situations and the social justice movements that have been started, re-energized, because none of these things actually have gone away over the many years and decades. It's just that the situation has come to fore, particularly at the center of it, the voice of the Black community in this particular case, and then more broadly, the Indigenous and people of color as well. And then, as if these issues certainly have not been occupying our attention and a lot of our activities, we also have been, some of us, or at least are aware of these, and perhaps Joe Constant would comment on this later, with essentially weekly, sometimes daily briefings coming through Washington about the about new challenges of dealing with partnerships with many of our international collaborators, particularly students and collaborators in China. So a lot has been occupying your attention, certainly our attention in the Dean's office and at the highest level of the university, and everybody's been trying to essentially pivot, adapt, innovate, however we can to do the job we're here to do, which is educate students, carry out world-class research, and then serve the community through our engagement and outreach. So these things haven't changed, they're constant, and we're just trying to, and have been trying to figure out how to do it best and improve in how we've been doing things, and highlighted by the challenges and circumstances that we're all facing. So I'm just going to say a few more words about what's been happening, a lot of which is not new to you because many of you have been engaged, you've been part of the activities, so you know about these. But it just sort of puts it at a level for all of us to be communicating more broadly about these things. And then my colleagues will fill in some of the details. And as you have questions, please submit those so that we can come back and discuss them. Well, let me start by just thanking you. To be honest with you, what you've been doing all of these months, your resilience, your creativity, your hard work is just incredible. I can't be on behalf of the college, on behalf of the university, our students and everybody else, thank you enough, because we know what happens in the summer. In the summer, our focus tends to be as faculty, our research. And then we all hope to have some opportunities to take a little bit of time off to essentially renew ourselves some ways before a busy fall starts. It hasn't been that way this summer. For many of you, for many of us, this has been essentially an unending sequence of Zoom meetings, working in the laboratories, working in the teaching laboratories, creating new technologies, creating ideas about how to do our teaching and research, and constantly looking at the news that was coming our way and the directions that would come from the university, and watching our peer institutions and what they were doing to see what our next steps are going to be. So you've all been busy, and I appreciate that. I still hope that some of you at least have had a chance to take a little bit of time off to renew and recharge. I also know that many of you have other responsibilities that are complicating everything that you're doing, all your normal work. And a lot of that has to do with what is happening with respect to the care, particularly for school-age children who are at home and have to take their classes online and so forth, or the care that many of you have to work on for other family or other dependents in some ways, or friends that you've had to help with. So we appreciate those challenges as well. And of course, the university and college, to the extent we're able to, will try to help however we can. And you've received communications about some of these things in the past, and will do so in the future as well. So what's been happening? Well, on a weekly basis during this past summer, Paul, and actually Ellen, and many times Joe, and all of our directors of undergraduate studies have been meeting. We've been meeting on a weekly basis, and this has been absolutely critical. And I have to take my hats off, and I know that Paul will comment on that as well, how much we appreciate the work of our directors of undergraduate studies and directors of graduate studies and others who've been managing these unusual circumstances and devoting so much time and attention to how we've been trying to adjust, sometimes weekly, as new directives would come our way about how we were going to teach our classes, how the students were going to come on campus or not come on campus. And then say through our technology office of Information Technology within the College of Science and Engineering, Jim McDonald's office, creating some new technologies that will help all of us in recording, delivering our classes, and so forth. I will highlight a couple of departments that have done incredible innovations. Our School of Physics and Astronomy has created kits for some beginning physics laboratories, because so that they could be managed by the students themselves outside of the lab. Our chemistry colleagues have done an incredible job creating laboratory kits for beginning chemistry labs that have been shipped to the students. I don't know how many thousand, maybe Paul can fill us in how many students, but we're talking about large numbers. These are really creative ideas. These are extra effort that none of us really had signed up for. None of you had signed up for, but yet you've been doing it. So thank you, congratulations to you. I hope our students appreciate the effort you've put into all of these efforts. And I can tell you that I personally, on behalf of the college, I'm really grateful for everything that you've been doing to be creative and innovative in ways to be able to seamlessly, as we keep changing the plans within the university, essentially serve our students. Well, similarly, as many of you know, and you have been doing it, of course, during the summer, after Joe led the Sunrise for Research program, have been on campus with your students. And that has gone marvelously well. I mean, again, Joe can comment on that, fill you in. But from everything I know, the amazing work, the amazing research that goes on in the college by you and our students and staff have continued essentially unabated, with some hiccups here and there. Some things had to be adjusted, but it's been amazing. And so just to highlight a few things that you may or may not have heard about, some really big developments on the research front during the summer. Let me mention in particular the 5-year renewal of the Center for Sustainable Nanotechnology, which is in collaboration with University of Wisconsin, but led by Christy Haynes from chemistry in the department. It's again, a $20 million center. An incredible achievement, landing one of the 4 engineering research centers from the National Science Foundation, this is the ATP Bio Engineering Research Center, led by John Bischoff, professor of mechanical engineering and the director of the Institute for Engineering and Medicine. And of course, most recently, an amazing, again, renewal and refunding for the Materials Research Science and Engineering Center, led by Tim Lodge, which is tremendously welcome news. There are many others that you've been involved in that obviously we can advertise and talk about at a later time, but I just wanted to at least highlight 3 of the really many million-dollar centers that we're very pleased to have been blessed with, again, with respect to research. Let me also say a few words about the activities with respect to related to diversity and inclusivity, as well as broadly social justice that, as I said, has always been and has been a point of emphasis and initiative within the college, but has been amplified and energized in ways that I am tremendously grateful, and I tell you why. I've often talked about how proud I am that our faculty, staff, and students together from ground up have created the CSE Diversity and Inclusivity Alliance. The Alliance is a grassroots effort. The college does its best to support it, and it has continued to support it to the extent we can, financially and otherwise, during the summer and also this coming year. But that alliance is so critical to essentially improving and enhancing the culture and the climate within the College of Science and Engineering. It is for supporting all of you, supporting all of us, particularly those from vulnerable communities and the underrepresented communities. So I want to highlight and again express my gratitude for the leadership that the Alliance has continued to show. Now, what has happened, which I think gives me a great deal of hope, but unfortunately this was created because of a real tragedy. This is the George Floyd murder and everything that has followed since, is how you within our departments and units have taken the initiative to actually take on the mantle of creating new conversations and initiatives within your departments. I tell you this because really ultimately what we do really happens where all of you work, which is in our units. I mean, if we talk about hiring faculty and diversifying the faculty, that happens at the department level. I mean, college, certainly with respect to its processes and policies, can help and provide oversight, but it is really all of us as faculty who are directly engaged in the recruitment effort. So what I'm seeing, what has been shared by the department heads, and we've had multiple conversations with our department heads, and again, I kudos to our heads for having been so engaged and creative in this regard, is what they've shared about the conversations and the discussions you've had at the departmental level within the units. It's just amazing. I realize that I only have a brief sense of what the conversations have been and what the plans have been, but it's incredible, and it gives me a great deal of hope that we can build on those, all of us together as a community. We're all in this together, whether it's the COVID situation and of course our commitment to diversity and inclusion and a better climate in science and engineering broadly, not only at the University of Minnesota, but certainly within the country and globally. So this all gives me a great deal of hope. So I again want to thank you and looking forward to working with you as we continue our effort. I can tell you also that this type of conversation is happening at the university level. Just next Monday at the Twin Cities Dean's Council meeting, we actually have an agenda item in this area to essentially share some of the practices within the colleges across the university, look at possibilities of leadership through the Office of Equity and Diversity at the university, to all of us to work in these areas as well. Let me try to wrap up a bit by just pointing out a couple of things. You've been getting a lot of communications. The university sends a lot of communications. The president certainly has sent many communications to all of us about various developments and various issues. And of course, you get communications from the college as well. All of this can become confusing. It can at times, I get lost in all of them. I have to keep reminding myself where to go find certain bits of information. The university and the college have done a great job, I think. We can always do better. more recently to essentially compile the information in a much better structured way on our websites. So I would encourage you to, if you haven't done so, to visit the College of Science and Engineering main webpage. There's a COVID-19 link on that webpage. And if you go to that link, you get nicely structured information about many things for the different groups within our College of Science and Engineering to get the information. And of course, there's a link to the university's website, the Fall 20, the Safe University website, which also provides significant information and has a compilation of a lot of these communications, policies, processes, information across the board for all of us. Nicely done now. It's much improved, so I encourage you to do that. So the last thing I want to point out is just a few words about the budget situation. I won't go into details of it. Excuse me a second. I don't have to tell you that all of these challenges with COVID economically within the state, the nation, and of course within the university in terms of many things, certainly enrollment, issues related to enrollment in terms of research, what can be spent on research. For example, we don't travel, so we don't get indirect costs on travel costs if we don't travel. All of these are affecting the budget within the college and the university in significant ways. If you have followed the university's communications and policies that have been discussed at the Board of Regents, and by the way, on Thursday and Friday of this week, there will be the next Board of Regents meeting, and we should all pay attention and see what the next possibilities are for all of us to be thinking about. But in terms of the budget, of course, if you're on a leadership side within the college, you all know, or if you manage budgets, you know what has happened. But the fact is that for this coming year, for this year that we're in, fiscal 21, we are operating on a reduced budget by 1% on our base that we had received before the COVID situation. That's just an adjustment on our base. And then since the university certainly could not predict what could be possible in the fall, what would happen with COVID, enrollments, sports, everything else within the university, there were contingency plans that were also put in place that we all had to plan for. There was a contingency 1 and 2, and these involved essentially budget reductions on the order of 3% and 6%. And we've had to plan for those as well during the summer and give to the university. Of course, what is unknown, and now we're going to get a better sense of what things are with the enrollments over the next couple of weeks. What we don't know is what the state will do. Obviously, the university does not know that. What we do know is the projections for the state's budget, which unfortunately is red. At least those are the expectations. We'll see what happens as time goes. And the next 2 years, this year, the university will be submitting its biennial budget request to the state. So depending on what happens with respect to the budget allocations from the state, we could be facing, as a university, significant challenges, additional challenges. So those are things that we have to deal with. But just we'll, I'm sure, have other meetings where we will, as these things become more clear, when we will discuss these. But just to keep in mind that we're trying to be very careful with expenditures within the college with respect to planning for the college. Unfortunately, the expectation is that the college, not just our college, but within the university, is likely going to shrink in terms of personnel, in terms of faculty, for example, for a while before we hope we get back into a process of rebuilding and renewing and expanding. We've done this before. It has worked, and we can only be hopeful that we will likely do this again successfully in the coming years or two. Which brings me to the last item I want to mention to you. Many of you remember that this is my last year in the dean's office. And we have a new provost, relatively new provost, who's been very, very busy with the COVID challenges. But very soon, she expects to put together the plans for the search for a new dean of the College of Science and Engineering. So I mention this so that hoping that all of you, all of us, will stay engaged, will stay active once that process begins. And they can look for a brighter future for the college as we all move through these current challenges. So let me shut up at this point. I think I spoke more than I was planning on, but it's easy to go when you're looking at yourself in this little window, and pass on to Paul Strakowski to add some more information about the undergraduates.
Thank you, Moss. I certainly I need to amplify how humbled I've been actually in my 30 plus years at the university, how dedicated my faculty colleagues have been this past summer, actually since late March, particularly the directors of undergraduate studies, and with the help of Ellen and Joe, the graduate programs as well, just keeping this ship moving forward and being nimble. And I would say in many ways leading the university in planning efforts for what has come this fall, which has been continually changing, which is of course, but as engineers and scientists, I think that's sort of our mantra. And so that's been, it's been humbling, and I can't say that enough. I think on the undergraduate side of the college, despite COVID and a lot of the uncertainty, it's an overwhelmingly positive message. To begin with, the fall undergraduate enrollment in the college is at a record high. Not by a lot, mind you, but we're at a record high. We've never had more undergraduate students in the college this fall ever before, 5,500 plus students. It's a very, very solid group. I meet with the Big 10 plus associate deans every year. I can tell you that on a academic level, they're indistinguishable. Our students are the top of the top. And that is because they want to come and work with the best faculty, outstanding staff, great student services. This group of students is, which might surprise some people, our most diverse fall class in our history as well. We have more students of color, more underrepresented students. So let me clarify that. Indigenous Americans, African Americans, Hispanic, Latinx, and Hawaiian students ever, both numerically and percentage-wise. We were within 1/100th of 1% of reaching the maximum number of women percentage we've ever had in numerical in our college. These are phenomenal accomplishments. We should be very, very proud of that. It's a very, very strong group of students. Yes, they've dealt with a lot of adversity, but to be honest with you, I'm very, very happy to announce that starting yesterday, we had almost 700 undergraduates given permission to come to campus to take coursework. Our faculty were unbending in the belief that access to faculty in limited face-to-face settings was critical for their education. And so our faculty made very, very strong pleas for exceptions to the rule that undergraduates should be able to return. I understand that freshmen are not really returning to the residence halls until next week. And so it's very rare for our freshmen to be in any of these situations, but mostly our junior and senior level laboratory classes are going to be fully functioning as of yesterday for students who need to be in laboratories, to need to connect with each other, with faculty, and with their teaching assistants. And so this is a great testament to the not only flexibility of our instructors, but also the dedication that this is critical for their education. Dean Covey has already mentioned how chemistry and physics have done tremendous lifting. Over 2,000, I think close to 2,300 students are being served with physics experiments in their homes. I like literally want to buy these kits myself and see if I can still do vibrating strings and things like this. I don't know how they do oscilloscopes there, but I'm sure they've got this figured out. And as long as they don't blow themselves up, it's going to be a great, okay, it can't be worse than COVID, right? Let's put it that way. All in all, it's been really remarkable. Our freshman class is a touchdown. In some sense, we might claim brilliant planning. We had planned this fall class to be up by about 5%, right? Because we were going to grow. Because of the usual, not so much students declining offers to Minnesota, but students deciding to take a gap semester or a gap year. Our numbers are pretty much where we expected them to be. That is a very good sign. Perhaps David Papone will talk about it later, but our student credit hours are pretty much steady. These are wonderful, wonderful stories. And that also, remember, when you talk about student credit hours being stable, that also integrates the effect that our service courses have, which means that we have still a strong contingent of students from other colleges taking our service courses. And this is in some regards the fact that students in the liberal education colleges and others are emphasizing STEM education as well. And I think this is outstanding. So our freshman class is also a couple historical high points. The number and percentage of African-American students is at a record high. Same with Hispanic, Latinx, and underrepresented and students of color. So I know these definitions might be a little bit cloudy, but the bottom line is, yes, we could do better overall, but at least historically we are at record highs and we're continuing to push that forward. We all should be proud of that. I've also worked with the Dougs and they have worked with the faculty, and I would guess the faculty are pretty well informed. The faculty syllabi are probably a lot longer than they used to be, but they have very good information about COVID. They have phenomenal information about sexual assault and the awareness of that on campus, and diversity and inclusivity. These are important things, and they're not just important in the syllabus, they're important that faculty and support staff talk about these things regularly, and these are important, and I'm grateful that the college has supported this. The D&I Alliance has been critical to this. Many of you have been working behind the scenes and are starting to become more visible, and I think this is really, really welcome. So I think overall on the undergraduate side, I think generally we are in very, very good shape. We should be very grateful for where we are. We hear, if you listen to the popular press, although I'm not sure what that actually is anymore, but that it's you know, higher education is this and that. We're doing a wonderful job, and the dedication to our faculty learning how to improve their skills with Zoom. Really, Zoom. What things are well beyond Zoom. I think of Lee Penn and some of her colleagues and other colleagues just really getting involved in many, many things that really make us a better institution and leverage not only the electrons that we can intersect with our students, but also thinking hard about how we can connect on a face-to-face basis, and we've done that very, very well. On that, I want to turn the mic over to my colleague, Professor Longmire, talk a bit about graduate education and faculty affairs.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to give you a little preliminary estimate with regard to our grad students entering this fall. It's a bit premature because we're still in the first week, and my understanding is that the numbers evolve over the first 2 weeks. The good news is that our total number of grad students enrolled has dropped less than I anticipated over the summer. So what we're seeing right now is we have about an 8% drop in the total number of students versus a year ago. I think all the DGSs know that various students who wanted to enter were not able to obtain visas. This is students from outside the US in order to enter on time, but some were able to over the summer, which was a good thing. With regard to trends, I told you the number is down 8.4% or 8%. There has been over the past 3 or more years a slow downward trend in our entering grad students. So in part, it appears a continuation of that. In terms of international students, what surprised me is our percentage of international students is about the same as previous years. Number of women students is about the same as the past couple of years. Number of international students is about 46%. Number of women students, about 27 to 28%. Students from underrepresented groups is trending slowly upward. And I will say that for the same populations that Paul mentioned, American Indian, Alaska Native, Black and African American, Hispanic, and Latino, those students represent 6% of all of our grad students, 12% of the US students, to give you some idea. And that's most of what I want to say. I'm looking at the chat here. In terms of faculty, if you are faculty, you probably saw the announcement this morning about the presidential postdoctoral program that CSE is planning to collaborate on with the Office of Equity and Diversity. And we're hoping to use that as a mechanism to ultimately increase the diversity of our faculty, and more specifically, to bring in some really good new faculty members, starting out by attracting them as postdocs. And I think I'll stop at this point. If I have missed anything, please feel free to ask.
Okay, and I will jump in with just a quick few points on research, and then we're looking forward to taking your questions. The high point here, research has never stopped at the university and in this college. And we have had people who've gone through extraordinary measures to move their research from being primarily on-site to being done from home. We have others who moved swiftly to start new projects related to COVID and reopen labs, often just a day or two after they had been cleaned out, dedicated to new projects on site. And as the university's Sunrise plans took hold, we have been at the forefront of bringing people back whenever their physical presence on campus or in the field is necessary. I know I've gone through and approved over 2,000 requests from our faculty, staff, and students, representing somewhere around 1,300 individuals and some people that were making multiple requests for different projects or different facilities within our college, and that these folks are being diligent about being safe when they're here, being separated, wearing masks. In fact, we've really done a great job helping guide the university towards a standard of safety and precaution that can't eliminate COVID. We've had people with the disease in our facilities like anybody else would, but that can reduce to an absolute minimum the transmission that occurs here by taking the assumption that anyone might be carrying the disease unknown, and we're going to take the steps to make sure that we keep people protected. I want to just give my great thanks to the department leaders, not just department heads, but in many cases, committees within the departments and the leaders of some of our research centers that put together tremendous plans to make it possible for people to occupy space as fully as is consistent with our guidelines and with safe distancing operations. In some cases, extended hours, in other cases, clever scheduling mechanisms, but a lot of creativity to make sure that research can go on. COVID is not the only challenge. As Moss has mentioned, we have the issues of travel. It's been a challenge for many people to discover that for many months their field work was held off by travel restrictions. Even today, many of the places you might want to go come with the type of quarantine time that it's no longer practical for research. Obviously, many of you have experienced technical meetings and other things that have moved online, but travel has been a big challenge. And then perhaps most of all, the challenge of dealing with graduate students, postdocs, and colleagues overseas. The biggest has been the restrictions in mobility. Students, prospective students having the inability to get the visas where they need to. That's starting to ease up. That's something we're really pleased to see starting to ease up. But the really significant restrictions that are being placed by the federal government on certain kinds of interactions, particularly with certain institutions in China, which many of you have reacted to, and I think reacted to in a really diligent way when realizing that you had students and visitors associated with these institutions to make sure that we're not violating export control rules. And we'll be honest, we don't know what's coming. We've heard from the federal government everything from maybe they're not going to provide visas for people to study in technical fields from China in the short term, to things could change dramatically in ways that are both better and worse for us. It's going to be rocky. We're going to try to keep you informed, but we thank you for your flexibility and your patience, and we're here working with you and working with the experts we have within the university to help rearrange all of those details that people need. And I'm just going to, one last word of thanks for creativity. We have faculty in this college who were among the earliest who realized, we're running events, they're not going to happen. It was often our questions about how do we do this? How can we spend the money? How can we provide good service for the attendees of events? How can we rebudget? That in many cases anticipated the federal guidance that followed, that actually explained how to do what we needed to do. You guys do tremendous work, and we'll be here to support you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ellen and Paul. We are here to answer any questions that may have come in. Elizabeth?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to clarify that questions on here should be submitted through the Q&A function, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. But I will start with one that's fairly specific, but I think leads into a broader question that we've been getting a lot, not necessarily relevant to the faculty and staff, but one that you've likely been getting as well. And that's, we had one specifically about the $2,000 surcharge is what it was referred to for things like printing and 3D printing in the labs. And broader than that, are faculty responsible for, or how can we respond to people who are asking about reimbursements for tuition and fees and things like that in this online environment.
Well, if I understand the question correctly, let me clarify the tuition surcharge. I mean, as you know, the tuition surcharge is very different from laboratory fees that are specific for some of the particular labs. The tuition surcharge has a broad mandate, essentially, when it was put in place and approved. The College of Science and Engineering naturally is, by its very nature, by the fact that its programs are heavily lab dependent, but as well as because of the demand for the programs that we offer, we were under tremendous amount of pressure, both in terms of managing, improving our experiential learning infrastructure, but more so in the beginning years of the surcharge, or actually a number of years, in essentially managing the physical infrastructure for some of our programs that there just isn't funding for them from the state. So the surcharge very much is focused on, for example, our plans, which is going to forward to a large extent for Lind Hall renovation. The Lind Hall renovation, the second and third floor, as well as some of the other floors at a lower level, at the smaller level, is going to be updated significantly to respond to the large demand we have in computer science and engineering, as an example broadly within the college and the university, as well as industrial and systems engineering. And there's no funding from the state in essentially providing the infrastructure support for those programs, as well as others. So this is a much broader perspective on that particular fee. And it is also was to then be in line. We were the last university in the Big Ten to actually have such a surcharge for its engineering programs. We're a College of Science and Engineering, but all the other Big Ten programs have had that type of a surcharge for many years to essentially respond to the added costs compared to most of, for example, liberal arts for the expensive programs that science and engineering provides. I should also mention, I don't know how I have to explain to this group, but I should mention that actually the challenges we've been facing, and we've been talking about some of these already, with the COVID situation and going online and remote and creating these, for example, the kits and so forth, these are expensive. These are added expenses. Our expenses have not gone down. If anything, we've had added expenses, both in terms of the technology infrastructure, as well as things like kits and so forth that we have to manage. So that's a different thing. Now, if there are fees associated with particular laboratories that end up not being offered, just as it was done during the spring, that latter half of the spring semester, then those will be, of course, refunded appropriately. I don't know if that answers the question, but this is a broader perspective about the surcharge. And I don't know if David Papone wants to add something to that.
I think that was a really good explanation. The only thing I'd add, which is just a little bit more of a variation of what you already were saying, is investing in the physical infrastructure of the college to accommodate more students to grow our instructional mission was tied to this tuition surcharge, and we've not backed off of that intent to expand the college's instructional mission specifically for undergraduates.
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. We have another question, and this is from Kia Bazargan.
Bazargan, yeah.
Bazargan. Okay, I apologize if I mispronounced that. And that's, what guidelines do you suggest that we follow for monitoring the COVID situation and potentially moving activities online? She mentioned that some K-12 school districts are following the cases by the numbers in the counties. So how can we do that, I guess, here at the university?
These are university level questions. If I understand Kia's question, if the question has to do with a class and what you do with a class, that's different. And
Well, so she had described, for example, if there's more than 20 cases per 10,000, so they're moving them to part online or part face-to-face. So are we doing anything similar?
Well, I don't want to speak for the university. Let's put it that way. So those are the kinds of things that the president talks about. The provost will inform all of us. And I believe, and it's likely that some of those conversations may show up during the meeting with the Board of Regents. I'll just make it broad, my perspective, general comment about this. When some of the universities started having students come to campus, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill was one of the examples that was highlighted at the national level. When there was a spike in the number of positive cases on campus and in the community, that created a very quick set of panic that then led to the university changing its mode of operation. A lot has happened since then. Many other universities have opened. There have been many large numbers of positive cases that have been shown up. Just today, I was looking at Indiana University, which was what, 1,300 positive cases. So one of the advantages University of Minnesota has had is, by virtue of us starting our semester later, we actually have been able to, as an institution, watch what is happening elsewhere, learn from their experiences, as well as, of course, follow the guidelines and directions that come from the MDH, Minnesota Department of Health, CDC, and actually this past weekend, the White House provided guidelines for higher education institutions. So all of these are going to play into how the university will decide whether or not to actually do a complete change in its processes. What you may know, I don't know how familiar everybody is with what the university's plans are in terms of a phased on-campus housing. So that's part of the process that has delayed things. So as you know, we're delaying we're going online for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, with some of these exceptions that Paul has mentioned. And then between the 15th of September and 21st of September, students who have on-campus housing, dormitories, will start moving in a gradual way to their rooms. University of Minnesota does not have that many students on campus in housing. I think our capacity is something a little over 6,000 for dormitory and apartments, university apartments on campus. By far, the majority of our students live in apartments. They use rental, they're outside, they're not in the university housing. So they're part of the community. So the capacity of the community, the health system within the community, both on the campus setting. The campus, for example, has over 600 rooms available for isolation and quarantining. So the campus deals with its on-campus capacity with respect to isolation and quarantining, and has to be able to manage the situation under those. The community overall, of course, has to work with its community standards and capacity in terms of hospitalization or anything else that broadly explains the public health and health response. And all of those are going to essentially inform, together with the State Department of Health, what the university will do. You know, I can't just say, oh, the university has decided, because there's no such thing, that there's a 2% increase all at once, the university will move in a different way. All of these parameters are in there. Also, the university shortly will has a plan. It has this mHealth plan, which is its testing capacity. Again, this is for the university to deal with. All of that is going to be rolled out. And that will play into the management of the cases that are going to happen. I guess my impression is that whereas a few low hundreds, probably a month ago, showing up in a campus setting or within a university community would have completely freaked everybody out, the expectation is now that there are going to be larger numbers. Okay, it still has to be within the community standards and capacity and everything, and be able to manage those. But again, ultimately, that's not our decision. That's the administration's decision, together Board of Regents, to make the final decision. So stay tuned.
Great. Well, we only have 2 minutes left, but there's another question that came in, and I know that this is something that's been discussed a lot. It's regarding childcare and parents with young children, the challenges, and how we are able to balance that, and any help that we're able to provide from all levels, faculty, staff, postdoc students throughout the semester.
Ellen, if you wish to comment on that.
Well, I think this is a huge challenge, and we're very aware of it across all these different groups within CSE. And one response I have is that we know at the dean's level that this is a big challenge, and it's been discussed with department heads as well, where one point is we need to change the expectations during this crisis and be aware of the difficulty. I don't have a simple answer to help everyone that faces this problem, but we have discussed with the heads the concept of allowing and increasing flexibility within activities, and discussing with all people who may be affected, not just individuals, and how to structure activities, reduce non-essential activities, to try to make things a little bit better. One thing I'll say about students, either grad or undergrad, is that there are some financial resources that students can apply for. Anyone that needs that website, I can provide it, and that's a university level resource. Similarly, we have for all students, undergrad and grad, there are what are called emergency funds that students can apply for. And there will be a response, and CSE is providing a significant part of the emergency funds that go to CSE students.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I guess we are unfortunately out of time, but we're all reachable. Happy to discuss and answer any other questions you may have. But certainly these come through our units as well. Issues are discussed within departments and centers, and those come to us through the leadership of those units as well. Well, so let me, again, on behalf of all of us in the college, thank you again for everything you're doing in these very, very challenging times. And thank you for your creativity and really effort and dedication on our mission. And let's hope, and we will work together. We're all in this together. We'll work together to manage our business to the best we can do, and actually have opportunities to enhance everything that we do. We're learning new things on the educational front. We're getting educated. I'm getting educated on a daily basis on issues of diversity and racial justice in particular. So we will look forward to really being better at the end of all of these challenges. So really appreciate it, and looking forward to other conversations. We certainly will have, if nothing else, the State of the College meeting in a couple of months, or month and a half or so, and look at some of the data that we are gathering more closely. So thank you.